Hey, everybody, and welcome to Boss Talks. We have a great guest for you today, Laurel Zacher, and she is based in Las Vegas area, Henderson, I believe. And originally, she was from my neck of the woods, the Seattle market up here in Washington, but she made the move a few years ago, and as of now, is out on her own doing some consulting work, marketing and customer experience, working with prop tech companies and property management companies in those capacities. And she has most recently done some posts that have sparked some interest amongst people. And that's actually what we're going to spend a lot of our time today talking about, other than talking just about her experience in the industry of roughly 30 years in multifamily or in marketing broadly, and in multifamily for a big chunk of that. So super excited to talk to Laurel. Bummer that she moved from Seattle and she's down there in Vegas, but she's loving it. So, and what I hear is she's really trying to convince everybody to move there. So, maybe I need to look at Vegas. I don't know. I haven't really looked at Vegas, but, things are expensive around these parts. So maybe I need to make a move, but we'll get to Laurel soon. Thanks for tuning in and participating. Make sure you let us know where you're watching from and let us know any questions or anything that you may want to ask Laurel along the way in this episode. But I'm Evan Happel. I'm your host. I'm with Community Boss, and we have a great solution for you when it comes to managing your physical spaces. We love to help you with things like parking with Parking Boss, your amenities and managing them and making them even a better option for your residents to use with our solution called Amenity Boss. And then we even have a map that really can showcase all that's going on your community, whether it's your amenities or parking, your units, everything. So rolling it all up. So physical spaces, we have you covered. And if you want to generate some revenue, we can definitely help you there too. So let me know if you have any questions, and I will be sure to direct you if I can answer it. But today, it's all about Laurel. So let's get to it. Laurel,
hey, Evan,
thank you for
how
being
are
here.
you?
Absolutely great, and so happy to have you. I have been somebody that's been in your sphere for a while. And as I was coming up in my, exposure to multifamily, you were somebody that I remember early on when it came to doing Community Northwest. You were somebody that Kim Lee would always talk about, and I was like, who is this person? Because I knew nothing. I knew zero. But I've come to learn a lot more, and super excited to have you.
Oh, thank you so much. I really appreciate you letting me come and join you and talk about truly one of my favorite topics in the world, which is multifamily marketing and multifamily customer experience. It's what I've been, living, eating, and breathing for the last 30 years, and I love everything about it. And like a lot of people, I sort of fell into this industry, right? And
Yeah.
I tried getting out, and it didn't work. It didn't take. For
Yeah.
about 6 months, I worked in traditional real estate, working with clients there. Um, Loved them, but this is where my heart lies.
Yeah.
So I
Yeah.
came
Once you
back
get
and I
in
love.
here, it's really hard because you start establishing the relationships and you just have a knowledge of what's going on, right? So
Yeah.
it's like, why would I take, it's like, anytime you move around, which I have done, and I will tell you, it's possible to do that, but it is also very difficult because it's learning
Hmm.
something new, brand
Yeah.
new. You think you're taking marketing to something else and you're like, I can do marketing, but you got to learn the industry.
Yeah. For sure. Well, I've been on both sides. I was on site first, then I was on the service partner side of the business for the next 13 years in sales and marketing roles. So marketing to property owners and managers and on site teams before moving back, like I think 16 years ago, to the corporate side and then leading and running marketing teams. And I'll tell you what, I recommend everyone do it if they have the inclination and they have an interesting opportunity come up, the things that I've learned on both sides have helped me grow so much. One of my favorite things in the world is contract negotiations, which frankly, a lot of people are like, I don't want to touch that with a 10-foot pole. I love it. Honest to Pete, you put me in a room and we're talking about, working out a deal. That goes back to my sales side. Like everything that could be used in negotiations, I've been on the receiving end. And I apologize now to all of the partners where I've been the one negotiating the deals the other way around. But I do love it.
Are you a hard-nosed negotiator? Do you really?
I would say, yeah. Anything I say doesn't sound humble, and so I won't toot my own horn. But I've gotten some really good deals.
All right.
So
nice.
Maybe I'll teach a class on that someday.
What's your biggest tip on negotiating?
Know exactly what you want before going into it. Know what honestly, everything else points to that. Know what your end goal is. If you're going in, if price is the issue, then know what it is and know what your bottom line is and what you can negotiate up to or down to. But know what you're flexible on as well. So if there's other services that are equivalent in value to you, but not cash, know that and know where you've got strength, because it has to work for both companies. But I'm going to give you one free tip. My favorite book that I've ever read is on negotiations, and it's called Never Split the Difference by Chris Voss. He's a former CIA negotiator, and it is my favorite book. And now anyone who needs to negotiate with me will be like, great, let's talk about Never Split the Difference. I'll be like, oh, great. Now I know I'm going up against a pro here.
Well, it's pretty crazy to go against somebody that looks up to somebody from the CIA to give you negotiation tips.
Oh, well, true. Yeah, like I take my best hints from a hostage negotiator. What about you?
Good luck.
Yeah. May the odds be ever in your favor.
Oh, that's funny. All right. Well, before we get into it any further, I'd really like to ask you a few questions that I ask all my guests. First one, for you, being that you've been in marketing and really everything around that, whether that's, getting leases, retaining residents, resident experience, all those things. I know that even recently you shared some data with me, I believe, around parking and its effect on the resident experience. So is there anything that you have observed when it comes to parking's effect on a community, especially ones that have potential issues?
Yeah. I mean, it's a real pain point, and it does vary based on your market and what adoption rates there are and what percentage of residents, are vehicle owners. And there's a lot of great data as well, both that you have on hand about in general, but also through the NMHC Renter Preferences Survey. They have a lot of really good data around renter preferences. But I've worked in a lot of markets that are really tight on land. Yep. So things like in Seattle and Portland, there isn't enough parking to go around. But we may also have and build towards attracting residents that may not have a vehicle. We might attract residents and build communities that really speak to people who may not want a car and might want to just be able to walk to work. But that isn't true everywhere. Right. So it kind of goes back to one of my main tenets is you need to know who your residents are and what's important to them. You can know in general about parking, but again, parking isn't an all or nothing. It isn't the same in upstate New York as it is in Florida, as it is in Seattle. Very different climates, very different renter demographics in those areas. I lived in Minnesota for 17 years. When I first moved there, if you only have outside parking and you don't have block heaters available for your residents to be able to plug in their engines, so that their car literally doesn't freeze up in the winter, then you're doing a disservice to your residents.
Right.
But we would prefer it if you had heated underground parking. So you really need to understand, what do your residents want in your area, and then speak to that, and don't assume they know. One of the best tips I also got years ago is when I was with apartments.com. And Lisa McQueenie Dillon was one of the sales leaders there. And she was teaching us about talking about, your features. And one of the things she shared was that residents, like, I think it was air conditioning is the number one most requested amenity at that time that people were searching for. And one of the biggest disconnects was in climates where, of course, everybody had air conditioning, but that's not true in every climate. In Seattle, for example, air conditioning is not guaranteed. It's in new construction more and more frequently, but it's not in all construction. And people weren't putting it into their ads. They weren't marketing this thing like, well, everybody has it. It's like saying you have, water. I mean, yeah, we're expecting it, but people in other markets don't always know. So put your best foot forward. Make sure you talk about it. If you have it, make it easy for people to find the things that they need to find. And that's sort of tipped off, like, that's just another little link in the chain. It seems so simple, but it's kind of brilliant. Like, don't make it hard for somebody else to figure out if you've got what they need and you're the right fit. And I feel like we get in our own way half the time. And there's probably simple things we can do.
Yeah, no, I think that's spot on. Like, it's really easy for us to assume. The biggest thing is we always assume somebody knows something, and or that they can figure it out. But a lot of times people will use like pictures on their website and say, "Oh, see the picture. It shows that it does that." So they'll infer that we do that. Probably not.
Yeah, exactly.
You just have to state it. You need to say things. Like, you got to say it plainly. Like, and so,
you bring up a really good point too that I talk about is, and I see that a lot where somebody will say, let's take a look, look at the picture on the website. Not all of our residents can see the pictures on our website. So we need to make the information accessible to everybody with things like captions and alt tags, so their readers on the computer can actually tell them what's in the picture. Just like we need to write better descriptions so that we're able to for them to be read out, so that we can be accessible to everyone who wants to rent at our communities as well. Remove the barriers that are making it hard for people to either find us, to move in with us and apply, or to stay with us. That's the crux of it.
For sure. All right. Thanks for answering. And then next question. This is completely different. So I hope you're ready. When it comes to music, what kind of music or song do you go to motivate you or get you going?
Okay. So as with a lot of things, there's never one answer for me.
Okay.
So I'm going to give you the most recent version of it. So usually Montel Jordan, This Is How We Do It.
Okay.
And
I didn't expect that.
Yeah. Here's another one you probably don't expect, because I was just talking and commenting with somebody who talked about it. So I apologize. I don't remember who it was, but Vanilla Ice, Ice Ice Baby.
Oh my
goodness. If you got a problem, yo, I'll solve it, is my marketing catchphrase.
Love it. That's
amazing. So yeah, but people don't expect that. They're like, say what? And but then I'll throw in, again, I kind of like a little classic stuff, but then I'll also throw in, like, I think it was Cypress Hill that did Jump Around.
Okay.
Not the crisscross version of Jump Around.
Right.
The I don't know. You're not gonna want to hear me do that one. But
well, that's amazing. So you really lean into like the jock jams.
I am a big hockey fan, so
okay,
kind of.
All right.
But I also love country music, right? And I'm also huge into like 80s new wave. So
okay, all right.
I'm a little all over the place. But do I have a little Sabrina Carpenter on my playlist? Yeah, I do.
All right. So you run the gamut of generations, and you're open to anything.
I'm open to anything as long as it's good and it's high energy.
Yeah. Nice. Okay.
But my
Awesome.
kids are embarrassed that I have Sabrina Carpenter on my playlist.
Are they fans of Sabrina Carpenter or
They have somewhat different tastes.
okay? So do you have boys only?
Yes, I
Yeah,
have two
yeah.
teenage boys
Just like
whose
me. Okay.
taste varies wildly from mine
Okay. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
and are constantly embarrassed by me.
Yeah. That's funny. Yeah, I mean it's your job as a parent to embarrass your children.
Yeah, while I'm succeeding grandly.
I'm really good at it too, believe me. It builds character. I think it's just a thing,
Yeah.
right? You got to do it. That's great. All right, and then final question: when it comes to your caffeinated beverage of choice, what is your go-to?
Um, a Starbucks venti latte with 2% milk and two stevia.
Oh, okay, very
And
specific. All right.
sometimes three shots. Usually I stick to the two shots, but some mornings three shots.
Wow. Yeah, yeah, that's a lot. That's a
Yeah.
lot of caffeine.
Welcome to
Do
my
you
world.
do you milk that over the course of the day, or are you kind of like, oh, straight down?
Yeah, no, pretty much straight down. But I do try to keep to like roughly 3 cups of coffee in the morning. That's it at most, usually two. But that's like if I'm going to order a cup, that's what I'm going to get. But I have a phenomenal coffee maker at home that we
Okay,
got like when I got a bonus once. So I'm like, it's the best coffee maker in the world. So
nice.
I
So
usually just make,
do you make espresso yourself, or is it more of a like a drip?
I do an Americano at home most
Oh,
of the
okay,
time. But it does like, I don't know, 16 type of things plus iced beverages.
nice.
I don't know. It does more than I can possibly ask it to do.
Sure. Well, that's awesome. Nice. All right. Well, thank you for answering those questions. Now we will move into all things. Let's get this right. The 5 uncomfortable truths. We're limiting this to multifamily marketing, correct?
Yes,
Yeah. So
exactly.
the 5 uncomfortable truths of multifamily marketing. Now you've made some posts, and you're complete now. I think you've posted everything.
Yeah,
Maybe last week about the different things that have been over the years for you that have stood out, that have been ongoing struggles that you've seen, not only for you and the company you worked for, but consistently other people as well, for
yeah,
multifamily. And the first thing that you mentioned was websites, and this is how you put it, and I'm just going to read it because I think it's great. Our websites are hot garbage.
yeah,
Obviously, there's some good ones. Some people have good ones.
yeah.
Not
It was a
everybody.
hot take. I mean, I'm fully owning this was me. You know how sometimes you're in a mood? I was in a mood. I was helping a client and doing some research and sending in some leads and getting frustrated. And this is not specific. I want to make sure I make this clear.
Yeah.
This whole rant was not specific to marketers and it's not specific to any companies. It was more about our processes, our systems, our assumptions in marketing and multifamily, I think aren't necessarily all serving us as well as they can. And I think that if we could sort of shine a light on some of these key areas that will improve the overall experience, I think there's a real bottom line impact that it can have to help us earn more revenue and really impact NOI. It's not just about the fluff for me. It's about how do we serve our business goals? How do we make more revenue for our investors, for our partners, and do good in the world to help our residents? And I think if we put them first, put our teams and our residents first to help them, then we will earn more profit as
Yeah,
businesses, right?
for sure.
So, but where I was frustrated first and foremost was websites. That is true. So I'm going to say I was around, again, because I've been around a hot minute, I was there when the first websites were all getting built in multifamily. And in
Yep.
fact, I worked on the service provider side and I was selling website development and I was working as a project manager developing multifamily websites from the get-go. So I was there back in the day when it was basically putting an online brochure up before we even had integration with our PMS systems to be able to display real-time availability and pricing, before you could even integrate with an email system. Like, it was basically your brochure. And we've come so far. And like, looking back, we think, well, of course we need to be able to schedule online 24 hours a day. Of course we need to be able to text, not just send them an email or click to call on my phone. I need to be able to text them real time and actually get answers. And maybe it's not a person, maybe it's AI that's answering me, but I need my answers when I need my answers.
Yeah.
And we've come so far, but I think we can continue to evolve. And I think there might be a few people we need to bring along to sort of think about the experience and really think about it from the renter's perspective. I think, having talked about this, there's a lot of times that we don't shop our own properties like a prospect, or we don't do it nearly often enough. And I tell people the first thing you do is go through the process. Do it with one of your properties, especially ones that are not in your backyard. If you have a national portfolio, shop in an entirely different market that you are not familiar with. And so you don't have any preconceived notions. Go through the whole flow. Try to get information to see if they have what you're looking for. If you can see the floor plans and you can see what's available and you can see the price and you can see your terms. If you want a 3-month lease, or if you want a 12-month lease, or maybe you want an 18-month lease, in some markets that's available. Can you find it and how quickly? And can you do a virtual tour? All the things. Then can you schedule? How easily can you schedule a tour? And what are your options for taking a tour? And then if you want to apply, do they have an online application? How long is it? All of these things that we do that makes it harder for people to say yes to us, we get in our own way and we slow down the process. And then once we get them in, how easy do we make it for them to want to stay? So do you have, your resident portal? Yeah, but how much can they do? Do you have AI so they can also get answers to questions 24 hours a day? Or are they only able to email you through the resident portal? And yeah, we all expect to be able to put in maintenance requests 24 hours a day now, by the way. We expect everything 24 hours a day because that's how we all live in our lives already. Like, I can buy anything I want 24 hours a day. And
Right.
here's another thing about Vegas that's so great. We have Amazon distribution centers here, so I can usually get most things within 24 hours, many things same day. Like, that's the world I live in. And I'm
Right.
not the only one who lives in that world now. So
Yeah.
that's where I started, was websites, because I was so frustrated as I was
Yeah.
going through the process.
So what are the big things that you think, maybe the top 2 or 3 things that you think that are consistently wrong with a website that you think people could do better?
Yeah. Um, so I see a lot of, okay, I'm going to give you a technical one. I mean, you got to have the basics down, like the ability to interact immediately. So whether that means a chatbot or AI, I'm a big AI fan for 24-hour a day interaction, if that fits your resident profile, right? Just because you have it doesn't mean they're going to prefer to do that, but make sure you have a way for them to get connected with you to answer and ask questions immediately. And yeah, we have to have self-scheduling tools nowadays. I want to say that at previous organizations that I've been at, 75% of all of our tours were scheduled through scheduling widgets. They aren't calling anymore. They're not emailing the office. They want to do it themselves, schedule it while they're thinking about it, and move on. So if you don't have that, I think you're missing out on a huge opportunity. And hint, not all communities out there have that. You would think they do, but they don't all have it. So make sure you're auditing to look at that. And then some technical things like how quickly does your website load? And is
Mm.
it designed for mobile? Like that's
Mm-hmm.
the first thing I would do if you're going to go in to do a website redesign. Ask your, and this was a tip I think I got from Janet Rosseth, was ask your website provider to provide and create the specs mobile first, because that's the experience nowadays that we have to design towards. I want to say it's like 85% of users are interacting with websites on their phone. Well, if you only see mock-ups first on desktop on a horizontal layout, but you're going to actually 85% are going to look at it on their phone in a vertical layout with a hamburger menu, and like that's how you need to see your specs.
Right.
Right?
Absolutely.
That's
Yeah. I
how you need
think
to do it.
I, I don't even hardly get on a personal computer anymore. I own one, but do I get on it? Hardly ever. The
Yeah.
only time I'm on a desktop is for work. And so if I'm searching for personal stuff on my work computer, which I honestly don't really do it that often, that's the only time I'm going to see it on a desktop.
Mhm. Yeah, exactly.
So
But the
it's
rest
going
of
to
us are
be
living our
my
lives
phone.
on our phone.
Yeah,
Yeah.
100%. Yeah.
So I
Yeah.
think
If
those are
you,
probably the most. And then if you also have things, virtual tours, whether they're pre-recorded videos or like a Matterport walkthrough, or you have interactive 3D maps, like an ingrained map, right? Make it easy for renters and future renters to get to those tools right away to be able to interact. You want to get them to be able to find their specific apartment home that fits their budget and fits their needs right away. And then you want to get them invested in what's the location look like? Where is it in the in the building overall? What does the view look like? And then sell them on the rest of the features for what it is to live there. But you got to remember, people are renting those four walls that they're going to be living in. It's the reason why websites like Craigslist are so popular, because they get it. It's about the individual apartments that you're going to rent. You're not renting the whole building. You're
yeah,
renting that one home that you're going to make your home. So you need to sell that and make it easy for them to get to it.
absolutely. So the other thing didn't mention we had previously talked about is also making your website be one of the first things that they see when they're looking for something in a specific area, or
Mhm.
not it going directly to like apartments.com or something,
Yeah.
because they
I
typically
think,
win. But the websites, it's like, why wouldn't you want them to go to your website?
yeah. There's a lot of discussion. So now I'm putting on purely marketing hat, right? No matter what the industry is. So let's talk about SEO, search engine optimization, which is
Yeah.
different from SEM, search engine marketing. Search engine, I'm going to give you the short version for any non-marketers on the call. Search engine marketing is when you're paying for Google pay-per-click ads.
Mm,
And search engine optimization is when Google decides that your website matches what the person on the other side of the screen is looking for, and it serves you up. One is free and one is paid.
right.
But SEO it's a long game.
Yep.
You need to invest in it though. I describe the two as SEO is like taking your vitamins. You're not going to see immediate payoff. And SEM is medicine for when you're not doing great. You want to avoid the medicine as much as possible. You don't want to
Right.
take any more than you need. Well, you do that by staying healthy, and healthy means investing in SEO and making sure that there's a long list. There's a lot of great experts in this industry who talk extensively about SEO. So I would make sure that you're following and talking to all of them. I know as a marketing executive, I know enough to understand the value of it and be dangerous in a conversation. But I think that there's some amazing people in this industry that talk about SEO optimization and those sorts of things ad nauseum, and are wonderful, that I follow.
Yeah. Do you, from your experience, do most multifamily property management companies, do a good job of either having in-house or even external people working on that specific area?
Well, that's a really interesting question. So I've done both in-house and outsourced. And do they do a good job? Well, it depends, right? On alignment in strategy and who the individuals are that are working on the campaigns themselves. So I've been lucky that the in-house teams have been really great and talented that way. But I've also had great outside partnerships. So when deciding, I can't say that there's a right or a wrong way. It all depends upon your business goals and your budgets and those sorts of things. At a certain point, there is a lot of benefits that come with working with an outside partnership because they are doing so many campaigns that they really know and are tuned in with what Google is doing. They might be even a Google preferred partner and really get a lot of the inside scoop and really bring those best practices to you. And that is the right move for many companies out there. But for other companies, usually once you get to a certain size and running a certain number of campaigns, the money that you're spending on management fees to outside partners might actually cover the cost of salary plus benefits for doing it in-house. The benefits of doing it in-house is a really deep knowledge of your business, your company's business goals and your company's strategy, and then can really fine tune, and you can do it on a dime. So if an emergency came up, we were able to make changes that day and budget alignment was happening immediately. There wasn't a week lead time. Those were the only campaigns that person was working on, and they were 100% of their focus for us, for our benefit. So, pros and cons to both, and I could make an argument either way depending on what the business goals are.
Yeah. Well, thanks for sharing on that specific topic. All right. So I think we can move on to the next one. You touched on this a little bit when I asked you the parking question, but basically we're terrible at understanding renters.
Mm-hmm.
So expound upon that. Again, you touched on it slightly, a little bit, but knowing the preferences and just what they want. So yeah, what's your expanded version of that?
So I think we are great at understanding renters as a whole. No, we're pretty good at understanding renters as a whole. Many of us have been renters as well. I would say
Yeah.
almost all of us have been renters at some point. So we understand that experience. Some of us farther back than others, but so at least we kind of understand that. But do we understand our renters today? In our buildings, in the cities in which those buildings are in, because I'm going to bet for 99.99% of us, we don't know that because we haven't lived in all of our buildings, in all of the cities, with all of the constraints. We don't know things like what are the things that they want? How do they interact with our building, right? It goes beyond just your renter surveys, but yes, it is about your renter surveys and using that information to glean really actionable data and insights. It's not just about your reviews, but it's also about your reviews to understand what people are saying, and without any left to their own devices, you often see people that are complaining. It's either the people that love us or hate us who are most likely to write reviews. So there's good information to get out of that, right?
For
But you
sure.
aren't hearing from everybody. You're hearing
Right.
from the ones that are at the ends of the spectrum. But the other part of it is it's not about the who they are, it's about how they interact with our buildings. So if you have a fitness center, when is the fitness center most heavily used? And why is it most heavily used at those times? How are packages? What does your package delivery system look like? How do your residents like it? When is if you have a package room, or whether it's in the back or package lockers, when are they most heavily used and why? What days of the week are tours being scheduled and why? And is there an opportunity, if you're looking at your after hours calls, is it possible you should actually stay open an hour later on certain days of the week? And you may actually be able to get more tours or answer more phone calls or respond to more texts or chats, right? So it's
Mm.
really understanding how they interact with your building, not just who they are. But I don't think we spend enough time understanding our customers, which is really what our residents are. They're our customers.
So some of the things that you brought up, I mean, they kind of fall into one of our buckets. And so I've always
Mhm.
been interested to know data wise the interest level, and also are they able to consume it and understand it well, right? So like you were mentioning the use of amenities and things like that, the hours that they use them. And I mean, I know from my experience, you really only know that if you set up sensors and you have some kind of more
Mhm.
advanced way to like know the use of something. Is that in practice being done, and like that kind of data? Because really you only know that unless you stand there and like anecdotally track it, right? But
Yeah.
outside of that, I mean, there is technology to capture that kind of information. So what is being done, and or is it just something that needs to improve?
Yeah, so depending on with some companies, I know we've looked at our key fob when we had
Okay.
fobbed access
Yeah.
to be able to see that, to be able to partner with our access partners to understand what is the data that they have available.
Hmm.
And speaking of partnerships, I've also worked with our screening companies in the past. Different companies have different levels of data and demographic information to really understand something as simple as if you're in state eight, what other state are residents and prospects moving from? Do you have a
Mm.
lot of inward migration from the state next door or from the state, like here in Nevada, we have a lot of people moving from California, from Washington, from Oregon. So understanding that can tailor how you interact and work with those residents. But that's a whole other side topic.
Yeah,
But
yeah.
there is data available. And you're right, sometimes it's anecdotal information. As
Mm.
marketers, we look at both qualitative and quantitative research. And sometimes that's the best that you've got, but it's also better than never looking and watching and
Right.
understanding what your residents are doing. I would take anecdotal information over no information
Sure.
most of the time.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. I mean, at the end of the day, it's taking in information, but
Yeah.
making decisions and actions based upon it.
Yeah.
Um, as long as
And
it's
really
data.
asking yourselves, um, what can we adjust to reduce anxiety, to reduce, friction points? It's one of the reasons why I really recommend doing a customer journey map. And there are actually a couple of companies out there who do it in the multifamily space to really help you understand how do your residents find you from the very start of their renter journey through interacting with your website, or is it through ILSs? And if so, which ones? And then the application process. How do they feel every step of the way? The reason to do that is yes to know, but then to take the next step, because knowing it only gets you so far. Then once you know, you need to look at where do people feel scared or apprehensive or unsure of what their next step is. And then how can you change your processes to make it less scary, less overwhelming, less anxiety, driven for them. And that will really create raving fans for you. And that means they will just adopt and move in faster and stay longer.
Yeah. 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 And we need to remember that we're not just trying to get people into apartments. We're also hoping that they stay a while,
Yeah.
not just that year.
That's exactly right. So I understand there are situations where we go in and we purchase a community and then we reposition it with a major remodel, some sort of upgrades, and then rents need to change. I understand um, artificial inflation or a decrease of occupancy in order to reposition the property and overall increase rents. Totally get it. But that isn't the majority of our properties. The
Yeah.
majority of properties out there are stabilized. They aren't going through any major, demos or anything or remodels and demolitions. So we're talking about the bread and butter ones. Generally speaking, the longer somebody stays, and if you're still getting healthy rent increases or appropriate rent increases for the market, you will do better that improves your NOI. Because at the end of the day, I don't know if we talked about this, but do you know what the average cost is for every unit that turns over?
I used to. I want to say it was like 3,500, but is it more than that now?
Yeah, it's a little higher
Six,
now. It's about 4,000. Yeah, it's about
4,000.
4,000 per unit. And that includes vacancy loss, turnover costs like replacing carpet and paints, and then also your marketing costs that you're
Right.
spending in order to rent that apartment. So look at a standard portfolio at $4,000 per unit. If you can reduce that, I did a portfolio study with a portfolio of now, of course, now off the top of my head, all the numbers go away. But it was huge. The savings we were looking at was a 1% increase in occupancy. So we're not having as much turnover, higher retention, higher occupancy. A 1% increase equaled $1 million to the bottom line for the
Wow.
size of the portfolio. It was huge. I mean, anyone can do the math for themselves. If it's $4,000, if you can go and you normally have, say, you should normally turn over, say, 40% of your residents turn over every year. Well, what does that look like if you drop to, say, 39% or 38%?
Mm,
I mean, the savings are huge at a single
yeah.
property and then look at an entire portfolio. I think it's worth investing in that.
Yeah. Well, and there has to be also things we really don't think about, like the cost of moving. Like when people move, they damage stuff.
Yes. Yeah.
So, what are they breaking along the way to get in or
Right.
out of your?
Yeah, and all the fees you're paying to set up new utilities or to rent a truck or to get your buddies to and their pickup trucks to help move you. I mean, it runs the gamut, right? But
Yeah.
rent or moving isn't free.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
and there's time or you may have to take time off of work in order to do it because the last day of the month falls on a Tuesday,
Yeah.
right? So there is a cost associated with the renter of having to move
Well,
as well.
and
I think most renters don't want to move. They want to love where they
right.
live and have a home and have stability.
But
Some do.
when they get shocked by like a really crazy increase in rent on their next
Yeah,
lease, they go, "I'm out of here."
yeah,
It's almost I've always thought, what if there was more of a reward system for staying? Like for loyalty, like a
yeah,
loyalty program. The longer
yeah,
you stay, maybe you don't get like a crazy discount, but something. There's something
yeah.
built into it where it's like, when you're loyal to the coffee shop or you're loyal to the grocery store, they give you discounts or coupons or perks, something
Yeah.
like,
Well,
um,
you're seeing companies out there now that are thinking about that, like Renew, right? Hey, Renew, that will help manage the renewal process using both AI, automated messaging, and taking some of that process off of the on-site team, and they automate it and do it themselves, and will text and interact with the prospects, or excuse me, with our residents to help convert them and really encourage them to renew sooner and commit sooner to commit to that next lease term, and structure it in such a way that they get incentives and benefits so that the earlier you commit, the more beneficial it is for the resident. And I think that, things like that are only going to become more prevalent. But I'd say, these are the things we need to think about to help manage the process again and make it easier for our site teams. One of the other things I talk about in tandem is we can't just keep adding technology and new processes onto the site teams and expect them to be able to absorb it all. Like, it's too much. They're drowning in a lot of the technology out there today. So we need to sort of look at, growing and becoming more complex and figuring out how to make it easier for them at the same time without just overloading them.
yeah. Yeah. Somebody did the math. Jeff. I've talked to Jeff before. I think Jeff must know you. So he said a 1 point reduction in turnover on a 10,000 unit portfolio increased NOI by $400,000. at a 6% cap rate.
Hi, Jeff. And yeah, I love it. Thank you, Jeff, for backing me up and coming in with the numbers. I appreciate it.
Well,
Props to Jeff.
and to that point, like any like revenue that's over and beyond, any cost savings that you can do, all of it increases the value of the asset. And I think a lot of times, well, I think it's a few things. Maybe we aren't educating everyone about that fully, like even site people. Like, I mean, even us vendors tend to just throw around the word NOI as if we know what we're talking about. We increase NOI and we don't even know what we're saying. But there's truth to it, and if we can actually put dollars and cents to it, it actually has an effect. But there's a lot of ways to do that if we actually look at it.
Yep.
So, all right. Next one. We got to move along here. Online reviews are our real marketing weapon.
Listen, I spent a lot of time living in review world. Again, I was there when reviews started with such a thing.
Yeah. Where'd you worked where?
So when I first started was when I was at Ghost Management in the Twin Cities. Shout out to my friends in Minnesota. And that's when really online reputation management, like that was when we even heard the term online reputation management, and really dug into that. And I was I've written thousands of responses to reviews in my career. And I am deeply passionate about the value of learning from our reviews, why you need to study it, how you do sentiment analysis on it, understanding the ways the different review platforms work. And there is so much. I have totally changed my opinion over the years. Like at first it was like, I hate these blankety blank reviews and these blankety blank websites. And then I'm like, yeah, fine, we need them. I get it. It kind of, value for our residents and prospects. I get it. And now it's like, you know what? I love them. I dislike that they totally shine a light on any broken systems and processes that we have on site, but I also love the information that we can get out of them. And especially for anybody in a corporate role, you're not out on site like, say, a regional manager, an area director is. You're not walking all those communities. You need to be able to, at scale, understand where those areas of achievement are and really celebrate those and reinforce them, and maybe look at scaling them across the portfolio. And you need to know where the pain points are at every single community as well, because we win or lose at the site level. We don't do it. We don't win it. Our corporate reputation only gets us so far. We win and lose at the site level. So we really need to understand what our residents are saying, leverage it to make changes where necessary, and really pinpoint. And frankly, one of the things I've shared with property managers is use that information. So when you are recommending CapEx projects for next year's budget, and you're going and talking with your asset managers, show them the reviews. If you have review after review after review talking about how there's a problem with the hot tub at the spa, and it's always green and it's always broken and it's causing frustration, show them the reviews and say, right. And this is why I need to very respectfully ask for my budget to fix that next year, because I'm tired of this dragging down a reputation. But use it that way.
Right. Yeah. Either fix it or get it out of here.
Yeah. But you know what? I have to give a shout out to all of my hardworking asset managers out there, because they are also understanding the value of reviews now, and they're reading the reviews and they're getting alerts as well, so they can understand what's happening at the property level. And I got to say, I'm giving them all props for that, because that's who I get questions from now. And in my last few company was, not just operations teams, but asset management teams. And also when looking at future deals, those teams, those investment teams are now looking at the reviews to understand what they're walking into. And those are some of the things I've been, now that I'm on my own, helping different investment groups with as well, is looking ahead at deals and understanding where the pain points are at communities as well. So I think it's a superpower. And if something is going well, share that. don't be afraid to, keep it under lock and key. Share it on your social media. Share it on your website if you can, where it's appropriate. Now, I always give a caution to all of this. The rules have changed from the FTC. They created their final ruling, and I think it's really important to understand those rules. I could do a whole other discussion all about, the FTC and reputation management and all of that. But know what that is and get into it. And just do me a favor, don't ask your teams. Don't give any incentives, not even a gift card, not even a contest. Don't give away a free turkey. I've seen those as well for any reviews. Don't ask for positive or negative. Just ask for feedback. And people will, just asking is enough, and you can do that. But also, just be careful of who you ask, and team members should never write reviews, and their friends and family should never write reviews. So,
Yep.
words of the wise.
Yeah, yeah, they're getting good at shutting down fake reviews and things too. So
Exactly.
yeah, and there's big fines, isn't there?
Really big fines now. Yeah, I want to say, I don't want to give you a fake number, but I
I
want to say
thought it
it
was
was
like
a lot.
50,000.
Yeah, it
Is
was.
that
It was
right?
around. I know it began with a 5, and I know it was five
Yeah,
figures.
I'm pretty
So
sure
it's a
it was
lot.
that much.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. Misleading customers is no bueno. Don't do it.
It's a no go.
What is some tools that you guys use on the property management side to really track this stuff and maybe anecdotally pinpoint certain phrases and words and positives and negatives?
Yeah.
Like, what are you guys doing?
There's a lot of great reputation management dashboards out there. So I'm gonna name a few. See, I'm worried if I say I'm gonna forget somebody wonderful. So I'm gonna
Okay.
go backwards. The last company I worked with was with Sochi, right? So they understand having a dashboard to work with is great. But I've also had companies worked with Reputation, with ChatMeter, with Jay Turner, with Satisfax, with Grace Hill. Oh my gosh, my friends at Grace Hill. I know I'm forgetting somebody, so I am in no way endorsing one over another, but because there's a
There's
lot of great people out there that
there's
work
a new
with.
kid on the block, and I just had the privilege of
Oh, White
talking.
Whale. See, I
Yes,
knew I
there
was
you
gonna.
go.
That's why I didn't want to mention anybody, because I know I'm gonna forget somebody.
Yeah,
So pros and cons out there, but here's what I would say: no matter who you choose, have a dashboard, because you need to be able to see the big picture. And there are great tools out there. Again, find the tool that fits your needs, but have a tool. Like, I
yeah,
wouldn't try to build a house without any tool, without any hammer and without any
right.
saw. I might have a preference for one over the other, but I'm not going to do it without either.
Yeah,
So have something so you can see the big picture.
yeah. And I've
But
already
there's a
said
lot
this
out there.
from a supplier standpoint. I'm really hoping that one of those companies sees the value in building a tool for the supplier so that we can do searches based on certain keywords that are pertinent to us as a way to sell to you, but more to be more helpful. Because if we know somebody has a problem, we can say, hey, we have a solution that can fix that problem. And
Yeah.
not in an annoying way, but quit wasting everyone's time, really.
Right. That's a
I
great
don't have
idea.
that problem. Okay.
I'm sure some of our friends online and listening now and in
Oh,
the future will say, that's a great idea, Evan.
I've already told Katie at Widewell that they need to get on that. So they got half of it, they got the system for their new uh they have all the data that they've gathered. It's like, all right, well then just repackage it, make it available.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But again, something is better than nothing, and you need something. It is
Yeah.
impossible to try and manage with Excel reports. Don't do it.
Yeah.
You're going to
Well,
pull your hair out.
because you can't, it's always changing. You can't
Yeah.
like copy and paste something into a spreadsheet and maintain that and make it
Yeah.
up to date. And it's just a pain. Don't do it. Unless you're some kind of whiz and you can make like a web or make your Google sheet or whatever do things for you, which can be
Yeah.
done, but most people can't do it.
Exactly. So
Oh,
I
and
just realized I have
Satisfax.
5 minutes to try and touch on the last two for
If we
you.
go over a little over, it's okay.
Great.
Okay, so
Because I'm
uh,
chatty.
yeah, it's all good. No, it's not. This is all good information. So if we go over, it's all good. All right.
Good.
Digital ads are a money pit. I, as a person that we went into this, you and I, when we were talking, complete outsider here.
Yeah.
Somebody that I don't understand this side of the business, but as a person outsider looking in, I've always thought exactly what you're saying. Digital ads are a money pit because there are so many companies that say you need to advertise on my website.
Mm.
And I'm like,
Yeah.
in my head, I'm like, well, don't you just need to go to this one and this one? Because those are, whenever I do a search, those are the only two that pop up.
Yeah. And this one really touched a nerve and got a lot of
Oh, yeah.
discussion, which is good. I
Yeah.
think we need to discuss this stuff. And again, there are digital marketers in the space who are much more talented and know more of the technical pieces of it that I learn from every day. People like Mike Whaling at 30 Lines, people like Daniel Polino, people like Grady Newman. Three guys off the top of my head that I follow and really learn from regularly. But there's more. There's a ton more. Oh, Brandon Pines. I feel like I've talked to him. I've got a million people I could talk to about this. But really, what we're talking about here is it's a pretty simple one. Find out what the metrics are that show you if your ads are driving leases or not and are driving business. And start there, really hone in, make sure you know what all of the data is telling you. You don't have to be a digital marketing expert, but you need to know which ones to pay attention to and ignore the other ones. And some of the conversations and things that I've been having and discussion around was there is a world of data out there, and we may be paying more attention to some of the things that don't actually prove if these ads are really driving leases at the end of the day. Attribution, by the way, is hard. I'm not like, oh, we're not looking at the right thing, and why don't we just look at this instead of looking at this? It's hard, and there's a lot of issues where people can come to your website, and if you don't have things set up the right way, it can break. And now all of your attribution will say, well, they all came from the website. Well, you didn't have a million people that all applied from your website, and that's where they found you. Like, where did they start? How did they,
Yeah.
was it on Google search? Was it a
Right.
paid ad, a PPC ad? Was it a display ad someplace? You just need to understand it better. Like, really, where did they find out? It's like back in the day where everybody was drive-by, and today still a lot of people are drive-by.
Mm-hmm.
It's the same thing. Like, you aren't all coming from the website, but it's because, again, our processes and our systems might not be set up the way that we need them to actually be able to see. And then one of the really interesting discussion points that we got into on that post was about, well, what is the right thing to look at, right? Is it understanding, like I always used as my general metric, cost per lease, but cost per lease varies by seasonality, and it can vary by market. It varies whether you're suburban or you're urban. It varies by if you're in lease up or stabilize. Like, there's a lot of things that will change with that. So is it a perfect metric? No, but it's some place to start that people understand. But is it the best thing to use? Maybe not. So there's also a term called ROAS, which we talk about, and that's return on ad spend. So if I paid $5,000 for Google PPC ads, exactly how much did I get out of it, both in overall leads to the website, but also in leases, and how much revenue, how much rental income did those specific leases garner for me? Did I rent them at a higher rent or a lower rent than the other apartments that I rented on other sources? It's really understanding your data and how it drives your business. That's what you need to know as a marketer, and it's what you need to be able to sell this in the future to asset managers, to owners as well, and to be able to have those discussions to talk about the value of digital advertising. So it goes beyond like, what's your click-through rate? Your click-through rate's a great place to start. It's one of the pieces you need to look at. If things aren't working and you need to adjust, you need to look at all of it. But that's just the number of people who saw your ad and then went to your website. That is important to know, but it is not the most important. That's more of a diagnostic tool. That if you aren't getting it over here, you need to go back through the chain, and you need to understand what all of those different things are telling you. And then somebody else contributed about MER, which is marketing effectiveness ratio. You guys can look up all of these definitions online as well afterwards. There's tons of definitions on all these different things. But that has to do with the efficiency, with how many leads your marketing is pulling in for you, and then and what percentage of them are also converting into leases at the end of the day. And if you can't tie back a specific renter to a specific type of ad that they contacted you from, then you've got a problem in your attribution. And I'm going to give you a hint. We almost all do. Every marketer in this space, we are challenged with that. It is the number one problem as marketers, generally speaking, that we have as a whole. And I'm sure there are some that are like, nope, I know exactly where. Well, they've got the secret sauce, and I want them to give sessions at NAA and AIM and Optech, please and thank you.
Word. That goes for us on this side too. Like, suppliers also have this challenge.
Yes. But there's a lot of really good discussion out there about it. But generally speaking, don't buy into vanity metrics and really understand what's driving, and we all have to educate ourselves. If we're not lucky enough to have team members, if you're leading a team, then you need to really understand this digital space and get smarter about it and lean into learning for yourself how to measure it, so you can talk professionally about the impact that your marketing spend is having.
Yeah. Well, thanks for sharing about that. I mean, it's an area, again, I don't know a lot about, but I've always had big wonders about. Like, I mean, something I brought up previously is, there's organic, but there's also, like, I'm a person where I'm going to go to like Google Maps and just type in apartments, and then see what shows up in the area I plan to move to.
Yep. That's your SEO. Yeah. That's the first step.
Well, and making sure that your Google business page is consistently updated, has, that's where your reviews will show up too for Google. You can add pictures there. You can add other specials, whatever you want to put, you can put right there on that business thing, which will also show up there on the Google Maps.
Exactly right. Every community should have photos added. They should have their complete, their office hours, their contact information. They should, and if your office hours change because you're closed for a holiday, update your Google business profile to show that you're closed that day. And then put all of your floor plan images in as a product as well. So now those are searchable too and discoverable by Google. And then Google Posts let you add daily posts. It's almost like posting on Craigslist, but on Google, right? I'd rather get that message in front of people on Google, which is where most people are searching, than anywhere else. Get them there. Put all of your information. Turn your Google business profile basically into a mini version of your website, if not more. And and now there's chatbots that you can connect that and embed that as well, so people can chat with your AI on your Google business profile.
Really? I didn't even know about that. Okay. Interesting. But just like Anthony just said, it's organic. This stuff isn't an extra cost. Like, if you just spend some time on it and make it robust and useful, people will see you compared to other people that they're looking at on Google Maps and go, oh, this is very complete. I see exactly what I'm looking for. There we go.
Yeah. I also work with small businesses here in the Las Vegas area. And one of the companies I was working with, the first thing I look at with them is their Google business profile. And I'm going to give props to our industry. Generally speaking, we do overall a better job optimizing, because again, we have some really professional management companies and marketers
Yeah.
in our space that know what we're doing. But with a lot of small businesses that I work with as well, they've never set it up. They didn't know how to set it up. And that's usually the very first thing that we do before we're working on everything else. Like, let's just take care of your basic business information and get you set up. Like, wow, I didn't know I could do this. Yes. And then go in and update here and add posts here and then add more photo. That in and of itself is a huge plus for just businesses. So
Yeah, for
again,
sure.
other people who are even more knowledgeable, I know enough to be dangerous.
Yeah. Yeah. No, it's all very helpful. All right. And then to round it out, marketing promises versus property reality.
Yeah. This is this is where I said our marketing promises are writing checks, our properties can't cash,
Yep.
because we are great as marketers of putting our best foot forward. We make these communities shine. We have the best photos, and like you look at these properties online, like that's a beautiful community. That's what our job is. It's to make it look like a beautiful community that would attract people, right? We're great at doing our jobs, but the reality is sometimes we're too good. Sometimes what that promise is like, how we talk about in such a friendly way. And, we are great at talking a great game about the community. And then sometimes at some communities, there's a mismatch between how we're presenting the property online and what residents actually experience. And if you don't think so, go back and read your reviews. And
Yep.
your reviews will tell you exactly where the disconnect is. And it's why I love reviews and resident surveys so much, because it will tell you exactly where we're missing the mark. People
Well,
moved in for a reason, right?
they're
It
going to
isn't
call that
only,
out.
yeah, exactly. And that's what frustrates them the most. They believed they would have this great experience. They envisioned what it would be like to live at that community, and we are falling short for them. And we need to understand why and how. And it can't be, it's not about every individual. One person's one pet peeve. I'm not talking about that, but I'm talking about as a whole, how do we make it easy for residents to engage with us? A simple thing I learned years ago, and I'm going to give a shout out to Jen Picotti, who taught me this years ago. And it's probably been 10 years plus that I've used this, was how we follow up matters. So for example, you come in, you've opened up the office, right? You've got a ton of emails and voicemails and chats that you're now going through, and you've got tours that are coming in. You've got to get ready for your day. How do you return all of those calls? Well, in that first hour, if you have a power hour where your office is closed, the first thing I recommend to teams is return your resident emails and voicemails. Call them back first. They're already committed to you. They've already said yes, and they are writing you a check every month, or they're transferring the funds every month to you, right? Follow up with them first and solve their problems and answer their questions. Then follow up on maintenance orders and service requests. Make sure everything was done and that they're satisfied. And if there's a problem that still exists, make sure you know what that is and get on it right away. And then third, call back your prospects. Why do we prioritize people that are merely an inquiry and have not committed to us before we respond to our customers, our residents, the people that have already written the check, the people that have committed and are with us for months or years, and then put other people first? If we focus on the first group, our residents, we don't have to have as many prospects that we're leasing to. And think about it this way too. A great community that's leasing is still going to lease to about 10% at the end of the day from all the leads that contact us all the way through and moving in, right? It's still about 10%. When you realize, take all of your leads, convert about a third of them into tours, convert about a third of those into applications, you're going to have some dropout with denial and cancellation. At best, you're going to get 10%, might even be 5%. That means 90 to 95% of the people who contact us are not going to move in with us. But that's where we're prioritizing, and those are who we're calling back first. We need to prioritize, we need to pay attention to them, but let's prioritize our residents first and then prioritize our prospects. the majority of whom are never going to be customers. Both matter, but the priority matters more.
Yeah. And you brought up Widewell. I had them on the show a couple weeks ago, Katie, and she recently gave me some data specific to people on site, whether that's the leasing professionals or maintenance people, and also around parking and stuff like that, which I was interested in. But the people aspect is number one.
Mm-hmm.
Like it's going to come up in your reviews in a negative light or positive. So you want it to be positive because that's going to drive retention, but it's also going to drive a positive
Mm-hmm.
review score on your Google reviews and elsewhere.
Yeah.
And that's like key, right? If they're interacting with your site team, their maintenance people, and they're having a bad experience because you don't return calls, you don't fix things, you don't like from a marketing standpoint, that's a death nail.
Yeah. Well, and if you don't fix things right the first time they come out, somebody puts in a service request, you come out, you might need a part, you might need, to just go back to the shop or something like that. You got to let the resident know what's going on along the way, even if they're not there, whether it's through, if you have the ability to text with them, if our maintenance teams have that to be able to log a note or leave a message or email, do that. If you can't complete it the same day, you have got to let the residents know. That is a major frustration for residents where things are not fixed right the first time. And in their mind, first time means the first time you come in the door to address it. You might be going back and forth to the shop to get all the parts and all the tools you might need. But to them, for a good majority of them, that first time is when you first walk through the door. So they want to know, can you do it in one visit or not? And anything else falls short of that, you need to be able to manage the fallout from that. Mm-hmm. It's completely realistic that there are going to be things we run into and our teams run into where they don't have those parts on hand, but you've got to make sure your resident is a partner in the process,
right?
To let them know what's going on, because that's so frustrating for them. We hear that over and over and over again.
Yep. But like you said, like focus on your current customer, not on who you're trying to replace them with.
I mean, it seems simple, right? Like a lot of these things seem simple, but if you put your residents first and understand them, understand what their pain points are and what it's like for them to interact with you, and then put them first and then improve the things that aren't working. Right. It's not about getting new elevators. It's about returning calls and getting things right and being kind and empathetic and, all of those other communication things that really drive resident satisfaction. And the elevator matters, but we can't do anything. People don't like our elevators because our elevator's old. Do you know how much it costs to replace an elevator?
It's a lot.
And if you don't have an elevator, they're not going to put one in. You can't do anything about that. But we can do something about how quickly we return calls.
Yeah. And if you don't improve in those simple areas, you're going to get new people, but you're going to consistently have the same problems. And if you don't fix your problems, you're going to consistently have people move out. And then you just have this vicious cycle of people are here for a limited time, they leave. Why not try to make them stay longer because they actually like living there?
Exactly. And while we're at it, can I put a plug in for keeping your hallways and your common areas spotless and your grounds picked up? Oh
my gosh. Yeah. It's the worst when you have like indoor halls and an indoor trash chute and your hallway smells like garbage.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I've walked many a hallway before, and I think and it's true. And I was on site, so I'm not above this. I was not the model. I was learning how to do all of this when I was on site. But it's like when I'm walking with somebody, with a leasing agent, and they're giving me a tour of the community, if I see trash, I look to see if they see it too, and do they go pick it up? If they don't, I'll go pick it up. I'm not going to leave it there, and I'm not above picking up trash. But that's one of the things I look for, is to say, okay, are they going to see it? And even though they're with me and they're walking an executive around the building, are they going to go pick up that trash? Because it's not acceptable to have trash laying around ever.
Right.
And I just want to know they're just going to go do it. It's one of the things I look at all the time. And clean is free. We can all help clean. I have cleaned. I've cleaned. I've been known to go into our model units and open the refrigerator door. And you know the little seal, the gasket seal at the top? If those are dusty, I'm cleaning it out right there on the spot.
Yeah.
That's my pet peeve.
Yeah. It is funny though. There are people it's almost like they don't see dirty. Like they don't notice it. I'm like, how do you not notice this?
Well, we all get trained. I will say, especially for newer leasing agents, that's our responsibility as leaders, is to teach them how to see it. Because not everyone was raised the same way, and certainly they were not raised with how to clean an entire apartment, right? And to what to look for and what to open. And so that's a skill we need to give our new team members coming into the industry, so they know what to look for and how to maintain those standards. And if we aren't teaching them how to do it, we're doing them a disservice and we're hurting ourselves as well.
Yeah.
And that's one of those small things. Like, think about what you've learned in this industry over your years and time. Like, oh yeah, that's a lot of things I would have never needed to know if I worked in a different industry.
Well, it's like anything, it just builds upon itself, right? So the earlier you're exposed to something, now you know that much longer and earlier than maybe you would have. So we got to remember to not overthink things, share and educate people on the simple stuff and the basics of customer service and just, like you said, cleanliness and all these things that are just the basics, because the basics are really what matter.
Yeah. And, let's use a little more, like, last pitch. I hate talking about luxury apartments and using the term luxury. Every marketing team I've ever had, I'm like, listen, don't give me a starburst in anything. Don't put it in any sort of an ad. If I see a starburst, I think I'm going to be sick. And don't use the word luxury. Describe what's luxurious. If it's truly a Class A community and it's got all the bells and whistles, describe what we have and talk about using it and interacting with it, but don't use the word luxury. Show me and describe it, but don't put that label on anything. If I could ban that word, I'd be happy, and I've done my job.
That makes a lot of sense, because luxury means something to different things to everyone. And so I see it, I'm going to think something, and then I'm going to go there, and I'm either going to be overwhelmed with how they've exceeded what I thought it was, and then somebody else is going to go there and they're going to go, this isn't luxury.
Yeah, exactly. Because luxury is subjective.
Yep. 100%.
So talk about your amenities, talk about your services, talk about how you delight residents and the things you do to go over and above for your residents and the services you provide, but don't lump it all in together as luxury, because again, my version of luxury might be wildly different, vastly different from your version of luxury.
Right. Yeah. So true. Well, with that, I just want to thank you, Laurel, for being on here with me today, and all those that joined us and gave us some comments and participated. Appreciate that as well. And for anyone that watches this in the future, I hope you enjoy all the tidbits that Laurel shared. And just like she jumped on and was a boss of Boss Talks this week, you too can be a guest. So if you want to jump on here, share your expertise, why you're a boss, and just your passions for this industry of multifamily, I'd love to have you. Love to host you here on the show. Reach out to me and we'll make it happen. Because here on Boss Talks, it's not about titles. It's about you embodying being a boss and really showing others why you're kicking butt in this industry. So let's make it happen. Until next week, when we do this again, it's been Boss Talks, and I hope you have a great day.